Joining us now to discuss is Todd Bensman. He's a senior national security fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies. He's also the author of the book Overrun, How Joe Biden Unleashed the Greatest Border Crisis in American History. And he's speaking to us today, as he so often does, from Mexico, where he's doing all of this excellent reporting. Todd, good to have you back with us, sir.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So we've gone through a roller coaster ride here with Mexico since the election. I know that you had some expectation that many thousands of people were headed for our border. And then, as you pointed out in subsequent interviews, President Trump has threatened to impose tariffs on Mexico. He's done that very publicly now, if they allow people to continue to pour into the country. And that seemed to stem the tide a bit. Where are we as of today?
Right. Well, the Sheinbaum administration is clearly still maintaining its massive military and immigration enforcement operation that was started under Biden, and which I expected to fall by the wayside after the American election. But it didn't fall by the wayside because Trump came out with this tariff threat and said, you better not let anybody through. There are many, many untold thousands of immigrants trapped down here under that operation, behind that operation. Not 15 minutes ago, for example, I was with a band of migrants who boarded a freight train. I was with them waiting for the freight train. They were going to board it, and they got all the way to the top, and the National Guard came roaring up, and they all, came flying off the train and running into the brush. And that's the kind of thing that is happening all over Mexico right now as the migrants try to breach the Mexican cordon to get to the American border before Trump gets in. I have spoken with dozens of migrants in the last 2-3 days in Mexico City. There's a lot of encampments here, informal encampments.
Yeah.
And there is a tremendous urgency among them to get in before Trump swears in. And that's what's going on. But also, I'll mention this, that there's also a lot of other immigrants that I interviewed down here who said that they're just going to go home. They're giving up. They're going back to Venezuela, back to Colombia, back to Guatemala, back to wherever they came from third country wise, because they just feel like it's hopeless, that they're not going to ever get in at this point. CBP 1 is going to be canceled, they believe. And so they're just giving up. These ones here are, jumping the train as a last ditch sort of effort to cross in before. Yeah.
The CBP-1 app, which is Customs and Border Protection, One app has now very infamously become the means by which the Biden administration has been bringing foreign nationals into America, making it so that they don't have to be classified as illegal because the Biden administration is trafficking them in. They just order it kind of like an Uber on their phone. Is that still going on today?
Well, as far as I can tell, it's technically still on the books, but it is so severely backlogged. I mean, demand far, far, far outstrips supply of those. 1,500 a day that they'll walk across the ports of entry, the land ports of entry, and another, 2,000 a day that they allow to fly over the border. And there are just hundreds of thousands that are in line for it. So that's why people are waiting 6, 7, 8, 9 months for their CBP. And now they're seeing the Trump clock run out for inauguration, and they're doing things like hopping the freight trains again.
Yeah.
But then they've got the Mexico problem because Sheinbaum is apparently not letting them through.
Even if they have CBP-1 authorization, are they still blocked up?
No, they're more than welcome for the time being to stay put, but the immigrants understand that the program is going to go away on Inauguration Day or shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
So they might as well make a run for the border.
Okay, so the foreign nationals who are in Mexico, they're not trapped in Mexico. They're just blockaded from America. Is that right? They could turn around and go back if they desired.
Yes, of course they can. Yes, they can return.
Okay. And then you mentioned some of the Central American countries whose foreign nationals you've been encountering. Is that the majority makeup right now of the people who are trying to still move into the United States, or does it continue to be for people from all over the planet?
They're from all over the planet. I mean, everywhere, every country. It really is a remarkable thing about this mass migration crisis that, 40, 50% of all immigrants that are reaching the southern border are from, 180 different countries. That's still happening very much. The ones that I'm meeting down here in Mexico City tend to be CBP-1 applicants, lots of Haitians, Central Americans, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
So, but yes, it is very, very richly multinational.
Yeah.
And that's a national security concern that we're going to be dealing with for a long time. We just had a terror attack by a Mauritanian in Chicago, crossed the border last year, and there he is charged with terrorism in Chicago.
Oh.
However, he hung himself in jail on Saturday, so we won't have the benefit of a trial. Neither will his Jewish victim
Oh.
or any of the police officers that he fired on.
Just awful. They just yet another tragic story like that. Todd Bensman, when you talk to Mexican officials, I know you've been speaking to them. What do they anticipate when it comes to the incoming Trump administration?
Well, I did interview a senior Scheinbaum administration official
Hmm.
uh, who explained to me that they are taking a hard posture toward the Trump administration initially. For now, they are saying that they are not going to take the multinationals. They'll take Mexican nationals, maybe some of the Central Americans, but they're saying we're not going to take any of these other nationalities. So they are setting up, as the official said, for a conflicting relationship, a conflicting relationship. So I'm not sure how long that's going to last, because I think they also understand that the United States muscularly holds the upper hand
Hmm.
on things like trade sanctions and bridge closures, and they can really hurt Mexico much more than the United States would be hurt
Yes.
in any kind of a trade war. So we'll see how that goes. But right now they're being a little bit bombastic, a little bit hardened, a little bit hard.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's an ego play or something, because you're right about
Could be.
the obvious advantage the United States has here. So, are they prepared for Remain in Mexico to be reinstated? What if anything are they saying about that?
They expect Remain in Mexico to be reinstated. Again, they seem to be suggesting that the ones that will remain in Mexico will be Central Americans and even Mexicans. Remember, a lot of Mexicans crossed the border. A lot of them got CBP-1. In fact, the largest nationality of all nationalities that received the CBP-1 parole were Mexicans, well over 100,000, probably closer to 150,000. So an unauthorized work program is what it was for the Mexicans. But they are expecting that to happen as well, and they think that maybe something like a Title 42 will happen again, and they are going to have to deal. They're explaining to me that this has to be regional. They have to have Colombia on board. There's going to have to be hard diplomacy with Costa Rica,
Yes.
Nicaragua, Panama, all of those countries, to Ecuador, that are involved to
So,
take their people back.
so as we lock down our border and threaten Mexico if they allow it to be opened, uh, our problem very quickly becomes their problem in terms of all of these foreign nationals who are not supposed to be in a country being there. And so Mexico, of course, has to deal with this. Do they have any appetite for mass deportations? Is that the kind of thing that you could envision happening in Mexico, that they start ejecting these foreign nationals from their own country?
Yes. And in fact, there's recent precedent for it. We saw an incredible experiment happen during COVID. when the United States under Trump closed the U.S. border, 100% pushbacks, Title 42. And then Mexico was stuck with the hot potato. So it had to do the same with its border with Guatemala. So they closed and militarized their border with Guatemala, and everybody was pushed back into Guatemala, which then closed and militarized its border in response. It was a domino effect all the way back to Colombia. And all of those countries militarized and closed their borders so that almost nobody was moving through there, certainly nowhere near the numbers that had been. So we have seen the domino effect of what happens when the United States closes its border. Nobody wants to be stuck with the big mass migration hot potato in their territories.
Yes, because it's chaos. And so, yeah, it's a great point. So, all right, we'll see what happens. Todd, anything else going on that we should know about down there?
Really, there's just a lot of angst among the migrants that are essentially, the way to look at them is, they're the caboose on the train,
yeah.
the 40-year-long train, and it's been decoupled, and they're the ones that got stuck as the gate shuts closed.
Yes.
And they know it, they feel it, and some of them are getting desperate and trying to do things like what I just saw on the train a few minutes ago.
Right.
And planning to go home. I mean, they're planning to go home. Yeah. Remember, they came here ostensibly in CBP 1, applied for that on humanitarian grounds that they were under persecution in their home countries. The fact that they're so willing to just return when the jig is up, they're not getting into the U.S., also puts a big fat lie to this whole notion that they are all fleeing absolute certain death.
Yes.
That is not the case with probably 10 different migrants that I interviewed yesterday who said they're going home.
Yeah. Well, obviously, the sheer number of people who have thrown their identifying papers down south of our border before they've crossed the Rio Grande into America, it really tells you everything, that there's just an immense amount of fraud going on here, and we shouldn't abide it anymore. Todd Bensman.
Massive fraud.
Yes, sir. And thank you for covering it. The reason we know so much about it is thanks in no small part to you. Todd Bensman from the Center for Immigration Studies. Thank you, sir.